Should we take a shot?
Should we?
Should we? Or no?
Should we?
Hey guys!
Hi.
Welcome back!
Or welcome.
Today we are here. My name is Kathy.
My name's Celeste.
And today Celeste is going to be telling us a story. So buckle in, maybe take a tequila shot, and come join us.
So today, the case I'm going to tell you about is the Madeleine Smith and Emile Longelet case.
Oh.
This case takes place in Glasgow, Scotland.
She's Scottish.
I am Scottish and I'm Irish, basically. The case takes place in Glasgow, Scotland in the 18th century. And during this time, Glasgow was known as the second city in the British Empire. And the reason for that was because there was a lot of industrial growth and also a lot of shipbuilding as well. They also produced a lot in garment making, furniture, pottery, food, and cigarettes and publishing as well.
Wow.
So it was just like a growing city.
Yeah, it sounds like they produced a lot.
Yeah. And with these kinds of developments, there was a class system in place, of course. There were laborers who were doing the work. They were working in the factories and, working in the shipyards and simultaneously living in really harsh, impoverished conditions. So not very different from today. Meanwhile, the upper class was benefiting from all of, the capitalism, living the high life. So yeah.
We know that's tell all too well.
Yeah.
Also, it sounds like you're saying building.
Building.
That's what you
Building.
Yeah.
So, among the high-class citizens lived a family called the Smiths. And James Smith was a famous architect, and his wife Elizabeth was the daughter of an even more famous architect, and his name was David Hamilton. And he actually built a building that's now the Glasgow Gallery of Modern Art.
Oh.
He's not really in the story at all, but here's a picture of him.
Oh.
Yeah, and here's the building that he built.
Oh, wow.
So, in other words, the family is loaded. James and Elizabeth Smith had 5 children. The family lived at their townhouse on 7 Blythewood Square. And they also had a country retreat on the River Clyde, which goes through Glasgow and up through Helensburgh. Here's a picture of their townhome.
Wow. Holy moly.
And then this is what I assumed their home near the River Clyde looked like. This is actually a real house that's on the River Clyde and it's near Helensburgh.
Wow.
So it probably looked similar to this. The oldest of their 5 children was Madeleine Smith, and she was taught at a really young age proper manners and the gentry culture, which is another term for nobility or like how to act proper and rich and like ladylike, basically.
Oh,
You
okay.
know?
Yeah.
At a really, really young age. And class separation was really strongly enforced and encouraged amongst the people in Glasgow.
Oh.
So, like, you stuck with your class, like you wouldn't associate with other classes. And Madeleine and her family were always going to super fancy parties. From a really young age, she would accompany her parents. She was always there, so she was always being exposed to that.
Wow.
When she turned 16, she went to Miss Alice Gorton's Academy for Young Ladies, which sounds literally like something from a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah, literally.
Like Pride and Prejudice. This whole story does, but like,
Wow.
I just picture that constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and at the academy, she took several courses, including piano lessons, walking as exercise, tatting, which is like, you make like doilies. It's like really fine knitting, where you make like, a lot of old people have them in their houses, like around plants and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Like the
Yeah.
little, like
It's
I know
like
what you mean.
knitted, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So she learned how to do that and other ladies' crafts. And the purpose of the academy was to learn how to acquire a wealthy husband. She got back from the academy when she was 18 years old. And despite the strong influence of the gentry culture and the pressure of being proper and ladylike, Madeleine had a really strong rebellious streak within her. Like, she did not really want to follow rules. You would think that her parents would like have her locked up in her house and not let her go out and do things. But she would do whatever she wanted, basically.
I love that.
She often wrote in her diary about going out and staying out until 2 or 3 in the morning and how she would walk down the street, like downtown with her sister. They were around the same age, and like how she liked the way the boys looked at her and her sister, which was like really improper, you know?
Yeah.
And she would spend days out on the town. She would go to parties, and she would often do this without a chaperone, which back then was like
a
very
big deal.
looked down upon. Yeah.
Wow.
She just wasn't your typical Victorian era woman, you know? And at this point, Madeleine Smith was 21 years old. She was about 5'2". She had a medium build, and she had long dark hair, dark eyes, and she was really fashionable and just really pretty with her expensive clothes and jewelry, you know, just walking around in Glasgow. But most of all, she was the walking epitome of a rich and successful family in Glasgow. And here's a picture of her.
Oh, I love her. She looks so serious.
Yeah. And with her kind of rebellious streak, you know, she was open to things. Like, she was open to getting to know different kinds of people. And she liked the boys. And she wanted to experience that. And she didn't really have anything holding her back. So later, she ended up meeting a man named Emile Langelet. Emile was just like Madeleine. He was the oldest of 5 children. And here's a picture of him.
Oh, he looks a little older than her.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but every time I like was studying this case, I kept picturing him as Pedro Pascal. I don't know why. He
I
looks
see
nothing
it.
like him. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Just in my mind, I was like, this is the character I want him to be. I don't know.
Like the mustache.
Yeah. And the darker features, darker hair.
Yeah.
He was born April of 1823 in Jersey on the Channel Islands near France. The Channel Islands have a lot of French occupants because it's literally right next to France. His family was obviously French. And they ran a seed merchant business out of the back of their house. And it was pretty successful, but it was a little bit limited because their main customers were locals, natives, and French-speaking people. So Emile's father really wanted to grow the business and bring in a larger customer base, and he wanted to target wealthy English visitors that would spend a lot of time on the islands. But because Emile's father only spoke French, it was hard for him to do that. So with the goal in mind, Emile was sent to be an apprentice at a neighboring nursery. And there were a lot of British clientele that would come into the nursery. So at first, Emile was really uncomfortable because his English wasn't perfect. But over time, he became a really hard worker. He got better at it. And eventually, he became fluent in English. So then he was fluent in both French and English.
Nice.
Yeah. And getting towards the end of his apprenticeship at the nursery in 1942, he was 19 years old. There was a man named Sir Francis Mackenzie from Scotland. And he was like, hey, you're getting towards the end of your apprenticeship. Maybe you could just come work for me. Because he liked Emile. Because his father really wanted to grow the business, he was like, you should go. And so Emile moved to Scotland with Sir Francis. The parents like sent him there basically.
Wow.
So Emile moved to Edinburgh in Scotland so that he could learn about the plants there. Just a year after he moved, Sir Francis died.
Oh.
And so Emile was stranded there because he didn't make enough money to move back home. And so he was like, ah, crap, I don't know what I'm going to do. But luckily, the nursery liked him enough, and they were like, you could just stay here. It's fine. He just stayed there. And over the years, Emile worked as a nurseryman in Scotland, the Channel Islands, and in France. So he was kind of like traveling all over the place. And then in 1852, when he was 29, he moved to Glasgow, Scotland, where Madeleine was. And he was doing really well financially, like with his job and everything. He just he was doing well, you know? But he kind of felt like there was something missing from his life, and so he felt like he was ready for marriage. People have said that he was looking to climb the social ladder, and by this point he was 29 years old, so he was kind of just like, I'm ready to settle down. So who knows if he was like trying to climb the social ladder or if he was just ready to get married. It's unclear exactly where Emile first saw Madeleine, but it's said that they probably met in a shop or some kind of boutique. And he was 32 years old. She was 20 years old. And he became pretty infatuated with her. Which is like red flag. Maybe not back then, but like maybe.
It's like, yeah.
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
Back then, because of gentry culture, men couldn't just walk up to girls that they liked and say, like, hey, I have a crush on you, you know?
What would be the appropriate way to approach a woman?
It was more proper to have a mutual acquaintance.
Oh. And, like, be
Acquaintance?
set up on, like, a date.
Yeah, so that's exactly what Emile did. He found a mutual acquaintance, and her name was Mary Perry. She was a middle-aged lady, and she was Madeleine's neighbor. I'm sure he just went up to her and he was like, hey, can you introduce me? Because I love her. And then Mary Perry was like, yeah, I guess. They started hanging out. And shortly after that, they started a secret correspondence by letters.
Oh.
And the reason for this was because Emile was a much lower social class than Madeleine was.
Oh.
And she kind of knew from the beginning that she wouldn't be able to, like, really form a serious relationship with him or get married to him because it just wouldn't work. The class separation was so strongly encouraged that, like, it would bring a lot of shame to her. But she went with it anyway because she had this rebellious streak, you know? She didn't care. She wanted to just get to know him and she liked him. So she was like...
I love that.
She was really loving getting to know him, and there was this budding, romantic kind of like buzz to their friendship.
Ooh.
And she writes in a letter to him, my dear Emile, I do not feel as if I were writing to you for the first time. We have become as familiar friends. May we long continue so. And these letters continued. They talked about everything. Madeleine would gossip to Emile about like her sister and stuff, and like the letters were so long that she would write this way all the way down the page, and then once she ran out of room, she would turn the page sideways and write over
Wow.
what she'd already written. The letters are so hard to decipher because you just can't tell what she was saying.
Oh my god.
And it was all in cursive too.
That's so funny.
They arranged to meet as often as they could without having her parents find out. So they would meet at local shops and on the streets of Glasgow, and they would just talk for hours and hang out as long as they could.
Aww.
They loved each other.
That's so cute.
But eventually Madeleine's father found out. He was like, no, this is not happening.
Okay.
He said that Emile was a fortune hunter and that he only was talking to Madeleine because she had a lot of money. And so Madeleine was like, wow. She was really upset. She was disappointed that her father forbade her to speak to Emile, but she decided to follow her father's orders and break it off. And so she also felt obliged to follow the social customs of the time. So when she broke up with him, basically she told him that she was really grateful for their friendship, that it must end. And she wished him all the happiness in the future. Emile at this point was not willing to give up. Because he was like, I love you. He ended up getting back in contact with Mary Perry again, their mutual friend, and Madeleine's neighbor. He was like, can you just let us hang out at your house in secret? And then nobody will know. And so he asked Madeleine, like, hey, if we meet in secret, then it's fine and your father won't know, you know? And so Madeleine was like, okay. She really liked him, and again, she had that rebellious streak. So they continued to meet and they continued to write letters to each other. The letters would get more and more serious as they were talking. The romance just bloomed, you know?
Wow.
Emile would go to her window at nighttime after her family had gone to sleep. And they would talk at her window for hours, and they would have hot chocolate together, sometimes some tea, and she would just talk with him long into the night. And it was very like Romeo and Juliet, you know, like forbidden love, but they just like went for it anyway. In the 1800s, if you had any kind of relationship that represented even the slightest bit of romance, it would be considered common law marriage. And so they were basically engaged.
Whoa.
In the letters that they were continuing to write back and forth to each other, they started getting a lot more risque. And yeah.
I was waiting for that.
A lot more frisky, and they also started referring to each other as husband and wife. Yeah. Which, like, in our time, risque means something very different from their risque. Like, the way that they were talking was, like, they were talking about cuddling and, like, holding each other's hands long into the night. You know, like, it was so different from... But that was basically... back then, you know? Like, it was a big deal. Back then, a lot of couples and women especially would be featured in the Scottish newspapers and probably newspapers in other places too for having premarital sex. Like, it was a huge thing. Like, it was a scandal.
If you had premarital sex back then and they found out, you would be put in the paper?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's like sexism had to start somewhere. Am I right?
Honestly.
During the summer of 1856, about a year into their secret affair, Madeleine was staying at her summer home on the River Clyde with her family, and Emile would actually travel to the summer home to go see her. It was said that that's where she lost her virginity, was at her summer home at the Clyde with Emile. So back then, if you wanted to have intimate interactions, you had to do it outside for most people, because unless you were like married, because you couldn't find privacy in your home.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason for that was because there was a lot of people usually living in one home and also servants bustling about, you know?
Oh, yeah.
She most likely lost her virginity in the garden.
Wow.
Because just after that, May 7th of 1856, she wrote a letter to Emile. And this is what it says. My own beloved husband, I trust to God you got home safe and were not much the worse of being out. Yes, beloved, last night I did truly love you with my soul. I was happy. It was a pleasure to be with you. Oh, if we could have remained, never more to have parted. And
it sounds like they got down.
Yeah. Yeah. June 14th, she wrote, My own darling husband, tomorrow night by this time I shall be in possession of your dear letter. I shall kiss it and press it to my bosom. Hearing from you is my greatest pleasure. It is next to seeing you, my sweet love, my fond Emile. Are you well, darling of my soul? And then at the end of the letter, she wrote, Farewell, dear husband of my soul, my own dear love, my fond Emile. A kiss, a fond embrace, good night, a kiss. Which was very salacious during the time period. You know, like she should not be saying all that. Yeah.
That's so cute, though.
I know. Emile kept all of Madeleine's letters, but he told Madeleine to get rid of all of his and to burn them in the fire. So that's what she did. The reason for that was probably because he was afraid that her parents would stumble across it, you know?
Yeah.
And if that was to happen, then she could get, you know, shunned from the family and by the culture, because it was like she lived in this upper class, rich, hoity-toity culture where it was like it wasn't just her parents, it was like everyone, you know?
Yeah.
Madeleine and Emile would still meet at Mary Perry's house. They would do that when they could. They still occasionally met late at night at Madeleine's house by her window after her family was asleep, but over the course of 2 years the energy really started to change. So Madeleine's family was not aware that she was still seeing Emile. Because of that, they were searching for an eligible bachelor for her. And they found someone, and his name was William Minnick. He was really rich. He was a merchant, so he had a lot of money, and he was 30 years old, so he was actually a little bit younger than Emile. He would spend so much time with the family. He would go to the River Clyde vacation house, and he would just like hang out there.
Wow.
And so he was spending a lot of time with Madeleine, and Madeleine, over the course of hanging out with him, she kind of started to feel like maybe this is better for me, because he's like younger, he's rich, my family picked him out, like I might as well just see what he has to offer.
Yeah.
While she was getting to know him, he was showing her a lot of affection, and she started reciprocating that. Probably, I don't know for sure, but maybe he was just being like a gentleman and like holding her hand while she like got on and off boats or something. I don't know.
Yeah, just like cute affection.
Yeah,
while
cute.
getting to know each other.
Yeah, and she started to reciprocate that. Eventually, like, her letters to Emile started to get a little bit more distant and cold. Like, she wasn't being as lovey-dovey with him anymore.
Yeah.
She kind of decided that, like, maybe she should just break things off. Because although she really liked Emile, she felt like this was just better for her, you know?
Yeah.
In late January of 1857, William Minnick proposed to Madeleine.
Oh my god.
Madeleine accepted. She knew at this point that, like, it was too late. Like, she has to end things with Emile ASAP.
Oh my god.
So she wrote him a letter. This was her breakup letter. It was in early February, and this is what she said. As there is coolness on both sides, our engagement had better be broken. Altogether, I think owing to coolness and indifference, nothing else, that we had better for the future consider ourselves strangers. I trust your honor as a gentleman that you will not reveal anything that has passed between us. I shall feel obliged obliged by your bringing me my letters and likeness on Thursday evening at 7. Be at the area gate, and the housemaid will take the parcel from you. On Friday night, I shall send you all your letters, likeness, etc. P.S. You may be astonished at this sudden change, but for some time back you must have noticed a coolness in my notes. My love for you has ceased, and that is why I was cool. I did once love you truly, fondly, but for some time back I have lost much of that love. There is no reason for my conduct. I think it but fair to let you know this. I might have gone on and become your wife, but I could not have loved you as I ought. I know you will never injure the character of one you once so fondly loved. No, Emile, I know you have honor and you are a gentleman, and what has passed you will not mention. I know when I ask you that you will comply.
Dang.
But Emile was not a gentleman, and he did not comply. He was pissed.
Yeah.
And he wrote to Madeleine, and he was like, no, I'm not going to give you your letters back. In fact, I'm going to give them to your dad. How about that? Emile had also heard rumors of her and William's engagement. He demanded to know if the rumors were true, and she denied the rumors. She was like, no, we're not getting married. And she asked again if he would just give the letters back, and Emile again refused, and he was like, I'm gonna show them to your dad. Yeah.
I mean, he's older. It's like he should just let her be, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, why are you being so shady? Just,
yeah, why is he being so intense? It's like, go find somebody else. Deal with your heartbreak and go find somebody else.
Yeah, it's like she doesn't want you.
Yeah.
You know?
Take a hint.
It's like, I get it on both sides. If he really did love her, then that sucks.
Yeah.
But it's like, if he's a social climber, like people said.
Oh, that's true.
Then what if he was just using her for the money and he refused to back down because... And it's like so convenient that his letters got burned, but hers all still existed.
Yeah.
And he was going to use those to hold over her head.
That's true.
Threaten her. Back in the 18th century, like, this was basically revenge, you know?
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And she had nothing on him, and he had everything on her, because he had the letters, and she didn't have anything. She couldn't be like, well, he wrote this back to me, you know? And on top of that, he demanded that she marry him.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he was like, you're not gonna marry that guy, you're gonna marry me.
Ooh, Emile.
I love you.
That's so gross.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is when Madeleine wrote 2 more letters to him, begging him to not expose their past intimate encounters to anyone, because she could face a lot of shame from her family and society in general, and she could end up getting kicked out of her house. And if that happened, then she would have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So she wrote to Emile, Emile, for the love you once had for me, do nothing till I see you, for God's sake. Do not bring your once loved Minnie to an open shame. I will die. Emile, do nothing till I see you. One word tomorrow night at my window, or I shall go mad. Oh, Emile, do nothing. I am ill. God knows what I have suffered. My punishment is more than I can bear. Do nothing until I see you. For the love of heaven, do nothing. I am mad. I am ill. And then the following day she wrote, I would not ask you to love me or ever make me your wife. I am too guilty for that. But oh, will you keep my secret from the world? Forget me forever. Blot out all remembrance of me. Oh, for God's sake. For the love of heaven, hear me. I grow mad. I have been ill, very ill, all day. My brain is on fire. I feel as if death would indeed be sweet. Denounce me not. Emile, think of our happy days. I could stand anything but my father's hot displeasure. Emile, you will not cause me death. I cannot write more. I am too ill tonight. He did end up going to Madeleine's house, but she didn't feel any less stressed because he still had the letters, you know, and he hadn't given them back to her. And yeah, and he was still, like, kind of holding that over her head, you know?
Yeah.
One night, he had dinner with Mary Perry, the neighbor. And he told her about how he had plans to go meet up with Madeleine. And so he met with her on February 19th. So this is later in the month after she first wrote the breakup letter. On February 19th, he wrote in his diary that after visiting with Madeleine, he got a really bad stomach ache. He recovered the next morning, so he thought maybe it was just food poisoning or something, which wasn't super uncommon back then because people weren't as sanitary as they are now, you know?
Yeah.
But then he got stomach pains again just a few days later. And it was after a night out. Emile had gotten home early in the morning on February 22nd. This time the attack was a lot more severe. He was bedridden for 8 days.
Ooh.
And
I'm sorry, but I call that karma.
Yeah. By March, so the next month.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that he kicked the stomach bug because he felt completely fine by March 19th. So almost like 2-3 weeks later, he actually went on vacation, and he had plans to stay for a week on vacation. But he went home unexpectedly because he got the stomach pains again. He got home on March 22nd, so almost an exact month from the date that he got sick the second time.
Oh, wow.
And this time he told his landlady, he was like, oh, I don't feel good, but I got a letter, and so that's why I'm back. I'm gonna be here for a couple days, and then I'm gonna go back on my vacation. But after midnight, the landlady was sleeping, and she woke up to a commotion at her front door. So she went to the front door, and she found Emile bent over in pain, screaming in agony that his stomach hurt so bad and that she needed to help him.
Oh my God. Imagine he has IBS.
He died 10 hours later. Yeah. And a note was found in Emile's pocket after he passed, and of course it was from Madeleine. Just a few days later, a co-worker of Emile's found all of Madeleine's letters. Madeleine didn't have any kind of public reaction to Emile's death. Like, she wasn't like going around crying. But on the morning of March 26th, so just a few days after Emile's passing, her sister woke up to find Madeleine was missing. So she was like, uh-oh. William Minnick, Madeleine's fiance, was at the house to visit Madeleine that day. And when he found out that Madeleine was missing, he was like, I gotta go find her. And so he told the family, hey, maybe she's at your vacation house. Like, maybe she went there to like just cool down. Like, who knows what's going on. I'll go check on her. And the family stayed behind, and William and Madeleine's brother went together to go try to find Madeleine. They took a train, and then they got on a boat, and on the boat they found Madeleine sitting there. She looked really, really calm. She didn't look surprised to see them or anything like that. She was looking out at the water. William went up to her and he was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
She started to explain, but then William decided that it'd be better if they spoke in private, and so she was like, okay. So they waited until they got to the River Clyde summer home. And when they got there, again, William was like, what's going on? And Madeleine didn't say much. All she said was, I did something really, really bad, and my parents are gonna be really, really mad at me. And then that night they went back to Glasgow. Then just a few days later, on March 31st, based on the letters that she wrote to Emile, the cops were like, it's gotta be Madeleine.
Yeah.
And so they arrested her. She gave a statement to the cops, and she just told them that she had last seen Emile 3 weeks before he passed. And she didn't deny that they had been lovers, that they had been writing letters back and forth, like a lot of letters and meeting up, and that they had seriously discussed marriage. She also didn't deny making 3 purchases of arsenic in the previous month.
Wow. Listen, I think that you should just break up sometimes, okay? But I kind of get it.
Yeah.
I kind of get it because she was trying. I mean, she tried breaking things off. She tried doing it amicably. He was like, I'm gonna ruin your life. What else is a girl to do when she's so concerned with class? Making her family happy, you know? Like, what other, you know?
Yeah, like what other option did she have?
Yeah.
But she said that she got the arsenic from a druggist, and when she purchased it from the druggist, she told him that it was for gardening. But then when she was speaking with the cops, she said that she bought it for cosmetic reasons. So back then, they would use arsenic to lighten the skin and also try and get rid of like blemishes and wrinkles and stuff. It was said to be like this miracle cure, but it did not do that, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's what she said she got it for.
Wow.
She mixed the arsenic with water and she used it to wash her arms and face. And she said that she lied because she was too self-conscious and she just didn't want the druggist to know that she was insecure about her complexion. So that's why she lied. Which is like...
It's like, at this point, just be truthful.
It's like you got caught.
You got caught. Just tell them the truth. It's hard to say what you would do, though. Like, if you were her.
Yeah.
You know? Like, if you would still try to, like, commit, or if you would just be like, all right, you're right, you know?
Yeah. She said that she never administered or caused to be administered to Mr. Langelier arsenic or anything injurious, and this I declare to be the truth. However, the autopsy was done, and an enormous amount of arsenic was found in Emile's stomach. So the cops were like, maybe that's true, but I don't think so. So then Madeleine's trial began. It started in July of 1858. Madeleine, of course, got the best legal team that she could back then, which back then I don't think it was a legal team. It was just like a legal counsel or legal advisor, basically. His name was, let me see. His name was John Ingalls. He was just really, really good at his job. And this was a huge deal. Obviously, like we talked about previously, like premarital sex scandals were a big thing.
Yeah.
So everyone knew about this. And everyone and their mother was like trying to get in on the case and figure out what happened. And, you know, they were just all trying to stick their nose in and get a piece of it, basically.
Yeah.
So the trial was moved from Glasgow to Edinburgh. It was all over the papers. Madeleine was a big topic of conversation during this time. The prosecution argued in court to admit all of Madeleine's letters as evidence. And Ingalls, her advisor, argued that the letters could be presented, but Emile's diary should not be used because it would be too difficult to cross-examine it, you know? Because Emile was dead and it's like he could have put anything in there, you know?
Yeah.
Like the only thing that really should be used is what Madeleine said herself. And the prosecution stated that the diary should be used because there's more info that could have possibly indicated that Emile and Madeleine had met up before he passed away, before he had his attacks. Ingalls argued again that the entries couldn't be used. It couldn't be questioned or properly cross-examined. So eventually he actually won that argument. And Emile's diary was not used in the trial. The reasons were persuasive on both sides, but Ingalls was just too good at his job.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and also it's like probably Madeleine's family paid a lot of money for him, you know?
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, these people are rich. Like, I'm sure they got him or got her like the best possible lawyer.
Yeah, and it's like not only that, they could have even bribed the judge a little bit.
Yeah.
The trial went on for 9 days, and there were a lot of witnesses that came and pled in the trial. One of them was Madeleine's sister, and she testified that her and Madeleine shared a bed, and that the early morning of March 22nd and the night, Madeleine hadn't moved out of the bed at all. So she couldn't have done anything to Emile the night that he passed. The prosecution called witnesses to testify, and they tried to point out contradictions in Madeleine's story, but the defense countered and called witnesses who claimed Emile had made statements to them that he had tried to commit suicide a few times. And so they kind of tried to bring that up and be like, he was probably really heartbroken because she broke up with him, and so he was trying to commit suicide.
Wow, that's a smart defense.
And everyone hated Madeleine. Like, she...
For real?
Yeah. It was very slut-shamey. Like, 18th century slut-shamey. The whole trial was based around slut-shaming her and blaming her for what had happened between them. Even though she did have some advantage because of her money, Emile was still older, you know? Like, he knew better. If she broke up with him, he should have just left it. Everyone hated her. And despite this, she was really calm during the trial. She refused food and water. She even had smelling salts with her, which are used to help you if you feel faint. Like, you smell them and they like wake you up. And she didn't use those at all.
Wow.
She followed the questioning of the witnesses really, really closely and just kept her cool. The only discomfort she really showed was when her letters were read aloud in court, which is like, obviously, that's so embarrassing. That's like very personal, and they're just reading it to the whole world.
Yeah.
The prosecution did point out that Madeleine had already lied once about the use of the arsenic. How she said that she was going to use it for her garden, but then later said it was for cosmetic purposes.
Yeah.
They also said that Emile's refusal to return her letters and end the affair was the motive for killing him. Ingalls refuted by saying that nobody could solidly disprove Madeleine's statement that she had not seen Emile in the previous 3 weeks.
That's true.
Yeah, and that is true.
Yeah.
He also pointed out that Emile had his first attack 2 days before Madeleine's first recorded purchase of arsenic.
Oh.
Yeah. He also pointed out that when she purchased the arsenic, she put her real name on the ledger, which would be really dumb. If she was trying to kill somebody, why would you put her real name?
That's true.
When you would buy arsenic, because it was used so often for devious intentions.
Oh.
You had to write your name on a ledger each time. She could have lied, but she didn't.
Yeah.
And the arguments were really solid, but because it couldn't be proven that Madeleine and Emile had actually seen each other before any of his 3 attacks, the jury deliberated for only 30 minutes, and on July 9th, they reached a verdict of not proven, which is a really unique verdict in Scotland that signifies that the accused was not found innocent, but the prosecution didn't make a strong enough case to convict.
Oh.
So Madeleine was free.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like this whole time I was like, yeah, absolutely she did it. But then when it was realized that the first time he got sick was 2 days before she bought it, I was like, that kind of makes me wonder a little bit. And the fact that she put her name down when she bought it instead of putting down a fake name or something.
Yeah. It's kind of dumb, like, to put your own name.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe she got other arsenic somewhere else.
That's true. She could have gotten it. Maybe that was her alibi. Maybe she was like, I'm gonna play dumb and I'm gonna pretend that, I put my name down, so it couldn't have been me. Maybe that was, like, deliberate, you know?
Yeah. Because everybody hated Madeleine, when the verdict was announced, there was an uproar in the court. People were
Oh my god.
and they wanted her to hang, which is so dramatic because on one hand, yes, she may have killed him, like maybe she did, who knows.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he was literally threatening her to be with him, you know? Like,
and I feel like the reason that everybody was so upset is because it was like so unheard of, or like so taboo for a girl to be like so slutty, which she wasn't even, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like the uproar wasn't about this man getting killed, it was about her being a woman.
Yeah.
You know?
And I honestly feel like she was just in love with him.
Yeah.
I think she was in love with him right up until the end.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible that maybe she even poisoned herself. Maybe she wanted to die with him, but she got sick and maybe it scared her, and so she was like, I'm just gonna kill him. I don't know. But, like, either way, by reading the letters, it seems like she was really infatuated with him, too.
Yeah.
And it was mutual, you know?
Yeah.
But afterward, even though she was free, things did not calm down because people were so mad. Oh. And the case was so notorious. And so Madeleine ended up having to move. And she went to London, and she married a man named George Wardle in July of 1861, so a few years later. And she continued to remain silent about the trial. She didn't, like, really talk about it, but because people knew who she was and the case was just so famous, they would harass her. Like, they would track her down and they would ask her questions, and, like, people would just not leave her alone about it, you know?
Poor girl.
And after many years of marriage and 2 children, Madeleine and George ended up getting separated. And it's not known if it's because of any particular thing or just personal, but they ended up separating.
Wow.
And after that, her life is kind of unknown. Like, people don't really know what happened to her. However, there's a common theory that she died under a different name, Lena Wardle Sheehy. That woman died in New York City in 1928, but her death certificate states that she was almost 30 years younger than Madeleine. So it's possible that it could be her and she just lied, or maybe it's just a rumor. All we know is that she took the truth of Emile's death with her to the grave, and that's the Madeleine Smith and Emile Langelier case.
Wow.
Wild, huh?
I wonder what happened.
I know, I want to know.
I want to know so bad.
I know.
And, like, I feel like she really did love him.
Yeah,
and
same.
also, like, the way that he was acting, like, I feel like she probably felt so much societal pressure to, like, you know, be who her parents wanted her to be. So she was like, I fell in love with this man. He's not it. Like, he can't support me. I have to just, like, break up with him. So maybe she convinced herself that she was in love with this other guy. But that was probably really tough for her. And then when she was trying to break things off, he was, like, all intense about it. Like, that must have been so... Like, he should have known better. He shouldn't have been so intense with her, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. And I don't know who else could have been responsible for killing him if not her.
Yeah, unless he killed himself.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is possible, because it's like if he really, really loved her the way he, like, acted like he did and said he did.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like if you loved her so much, why would you, like, threaten her or try to blackmail her?
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you. And we're gonna finish our makeup.
And we'll be right back.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I hope you liked this story. It was a wild one.
It was so good.
I'm glad you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we hope you have a good day.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
If you ever